Welcome to Self-Love Ignited. My name is Katie Allen. I'm a certified health and life coach, and we are here to talk all things self-love, self-acceptance, body image, health, and total well-being. You are going to hear from me, plus you'll hear the stories of other women who have transformed this already. They have walked this path, and they have really learned how to love and embrace all parts of themselves. We are here to help you be inspired, motivated, and to help you really transform your relationship with yourself to be a loving and positive force each and every day. This is so important so that you can really reach your big dreams, feel at home in your skin, be healthy on your terms, and live a big life. What are you waiting for? Let's get to it. On the podcast today, we have Yolanda Riley. Yolanda is an empowerment, mindset, and transformation coach. Her focus is helping people break free from limiting stories and reconnect with their authentic selves and life purpose. She has over 10 years experience working with populations such as the homeless and mentally ill, those with intellectual disabilities, Alzheimer's, dementia, and hospice. She currently facilitates a workshop called It's Okay Not to Be Okay. Let's dive in. Okay, Yolanda, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I am super excited to be here. So I don't know, like I'm just all just a buzz. So very excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So let's just dive right in. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? So this podcast is all about, stories, self-love, body image, all that sort of stuff. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can sort of dive into the deeper stuff.
Okay. So my name is Yolanda Riley, and I am based in St. Louis, Missouri, in the United States. I'm a coach, and specifically, I focus on the lens of empowerment, of mindset, and transformation, all because it relates to my personal story. And so, what I like to do is I like to help people, and it's all people, all people who feel stuck, who feel like they have lost their way or confused or not feeling like themselves. So they feel stuck and they feel blocked. And so I help them to break free of those blocks, whether it's energetic, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, by exploring any old stories that are deep rooted, uh, any uh, any inherited stories that they may have, and then to connect them with their genuine selves, their authentic selves, and their genuine life purpose. And the reason why that's so near and dear to me is because I felt disconnected like that. I felt that way. I don't know. Well, I'm pretty sure everybody can relate to this, of course. At some point we were all children. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we wouldn't be adults, right? and and as a child, the world is just so wondrous. I mean, like you're just out there exploring. You're out there just taking in everything, curious about this, that, and the other, and it's just boundless. It's just boundless. And then at some point, and for some people, it's more severe than others. But at some point, um, we start to hear no, or we start to hear I can't, or for some people, it's too expensive, or you can't do this because of dot dot dot. Hmm. And then we start to internalize those stories. We start to internalize those stories. We start to cut ourselves off from our own wisdom, inner wisdom, and our own genius, because all of these external influences. Now, a lot of people may not know better. Like if you're coming up in a family There's different family dynamics, there's community, there's culture. And all of that plays a role into the stories that you tell yourself and that you receive. And so sometimes that gets so indoctrinated that it can do one or two things. One, like you're part of this, of, let's say, the society, and you're in the in crowd, so to speak. And so, everything's a go for you. Or you don't fit in. You don't fit in. You're on the outside. You're on the outside looking in, and you feel a disconnect. But then this can also happen in different areas and different eras of people's lives too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they went to school to be a doctor, and then one day they decide, oh my goodness, no, I went through all that training, I worked, all of that, but this is not what I want to do. I want to be an artist, something totally different, right? But maybe they were pushed in that direction because of their parents, because people expected them to be a doctor, because they had the smarts, they knew, they were able to catch on the information, but it really wasn't them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I want to help people, because it's our life. Once we get to a point, and it could be like a major shakeup, a major transition in some kind of way, or maybe it's just a deep soul call that just rises up, and then one day you're just like, this doesn't fit me, or this isn't right, something's off. And so, you're not like in the moment, so to speak. You're just wondering, what was that? And so it's important for people to explore that and not live a lie, you know? And so we explore these stories, and we explore these in a deep way, the deep work. And so I'm very committed to having people reconnect with their purpose, like their true, genuine purpose, and then with themselves. So they're coming back home. They're coming back home to all of it.
Ooh, that's powerful. Damn. You gave me goosebumps there. I love
Oh,
that. Coming back home. It's like coming home to yourself.
it's true. It's
Yeah.
true. We didn't leave. It's just like all the things that we have absorbed, or to the point where we start telling ourselves, and it's a survival mechanism that kicks in. And so we start telling ourselves these certain things, and then we just get disconnected. We are disconnected, and when we are disconnected, it's hard to move through the world confidently. You know, or like you feel like a carbon copy of somebody, but it's not you.
Mm-hmm.
You're like living a character, but it's not your authentic self. So I am that's my work, because it's so important, because we're here in the now, to reconnect with yourself, reconnect with what you want to do, what is driving you, what is your true purpose. Forget about what people are expecting of you. What do you want to do? What do you want to be?
Yeah. And that's a big question. That's a big question, especially for people if they haven't asked that question in a really long time. That's a
Mm-hmm.
that's a very deep question. That is really, really important work. Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Thank you.
So I would assume if you are anything like me and most of the other sort of people in this space that I meet, you do this work because it has to do with your own story, right?
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. So why don't you paint the picture of Yolanda? Tell us about your life, where you came from and why this work and the journey that you went through personally to get here as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. So as I was telling you, like currently I live in St. Louis, Missouri, but I was born and raised in East St. Louis, Illinois. And if you're not familiar with it, it's predominantly African American at this point. in time and in an urban setting. So as I was growing up, um, I just kept hearing so many things. Like if you're growing up within the city, you don't know, like you're used to things being a certain way, knowing people, all of that. But it's like as soon as I started to travel outside and I started to talk to people about it, when they would ask a big thing around here, it's a St. Louis thing apparently, but they would ask where you go to high school. And so if I were to say my high school, which is Lincoln Senior High School, which is now closed, then it would just honestly it would shut the doors. Or if I would tell somebody I'm from East St. Louis, it would shut the doors.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, like just from the mentioning it, because then what would happen is you would hear the stories like, oh, I heard about East St. Louis. I traveled across the. Honestly, this happened. Like I traveled on the highway on the way to Belleville or Fairview Heights, and I heard about things that this, that, or the other. And there's two things happening there. First of all, okay, you're relating how awful, god awful the city is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I grew up there, I didn't have a choice but to live there. But you're saying, oh, I passed by it a few times and there's nothing there but liquor stores and all of that. Okay, that's a judgment. And then that's a judgment against me. You know, I couldn't help where I live. I didn't have the wherewithal to just, uproot and leave. And to hear that multiple times, it got to a point where, you know, I just didn't, when someone asked, that it was better not to say anything, honestly, because it impacted a lot of things. And
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say that, but it's true.
Yeah.
And so, like, that just got me to thinking about, like, that and just, uh, just the school system or the lack of funds that were coming through. And it was such a it was such a just not a lot of things that would help support, like, maybe like good schooling, good textbooks, things like that. So it was a disadvantage, like just community wise.
Yeah.
And so couple that with not being able to, like people take walks for granted. Like people are walking, you go outside, oh, I'm going to go for a walk. See you later, and then you could just go outside and walk depending on where you were. And I didn't have that option, I didn't have that option. It was just, um, for a while there, I was able to, walk from school and in home or something like that. But then it started getting worse and worse and worse. And when I got home, I wasn't able to go anywhere, like it was just inside. And I so desperately wanted to just take a walk, like a walk just meant the world to me. And you were unable to do that. And so, like with the environment and like with that impacting me, and then also it wasn't, I was just disconnected. Like I was a very quiet girl. And the way I cope with a lot of things um, was through eating, like emotional eating.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I was not able to go walk outside or just deal with things in a proper manner. Like I didn't know how to manage my emotions. I didn't know how to express that properly. And so I gained a lot of weight, and I was quiet. I just was afraid of my own shadow, honestly. Like I just could not talk to people. And so it put me in a real disadvantage socially. And so it took a long time because like I had low self-esteem. I was just very sad all the time. I wanted to talk to people, but then I didn't know how to relate.
Mm-hmm.
So like all of these things just came crashing. And it was like that for a long time. Like I had no idea how to process. And then like when I moved away to college, it was like the first time ever I was able to go walk and not really worry about too much stuff. I mean, the first time, and it blew my mind. Like, oh, I'm able to walk and get some fresh air. This is, it's awesome.
Mm.
I love fresh air. Something as simple as that,
Yeah.
I didn't take for granted. And so it just became an exploration. Like I just felt very lost and disconnected. I really didn't have a purpose. I didn't know what I wanted to do, honestly. Like I would kind of lob on to things that I was good at, but I didn't, I didn't discover my passion, you know, and the things that I was good at, like I had such low self-esteem and like telling myself stories and like internally where I would just self-sabotage. I noticed like I self-sabotaged a lot.
Mhm.
And it was really, it was really a bad, like it was really awful. And I had no idea how to deal. And then one day, like I just decided to just be positive. And what really changed it around, honestly, was I was at a wedding and there was a baby and the baby smiled at me. It was just something so pure about that. And I was just looking at the baby and the baby just looked at me and smiled that I was just like, wow, and that brought me to tears. That really brought me to tears. And then from then it was like a game changer. And I started to look for natural things, like things, something related to wellness, taking more walks, um, working on what's called mindset now, but like working on that. So I used to study my cat. I had a cat that I used to study, and I love to see cats in action because they're so focused. They see something. They're not telling themselves, "Oh, I can't have that," or "No, I can't do that." They see something. They lock their eyes on it. They get their body ready. They're all focused, and then they go for it, and then they get it. From studying that, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to apply that to. I'm going to try what I thought I wasn't good at only because I was sad, and I'm going to do it again. And next thing I know, I do that same thing, and just everything changed. Like everything changed. So I went from having like mediocre grades, let's say, to like just getting like straight A's and things like that because of a shift in mindset, you
Mhm.
know,
Yep.
getting confidence, getting that focus, and then just starting to work on there. And then from there, I was just like, you know what? I do not ever want anyone to feel this way. I would want somebody to have an outlet or have to be of service to. I would want to be of service to somebody, but you know that would make me sad to think that somebody is just wandering around feeling this way about themselves, and self sabotaging and eating themselves into oblivion and just staying in that vicious cycle, just in a cloud or a fog all the time and not knowing, you know, that's
Yeah.
no way to live. That's not living. That's existing, if at all. So I wanted to bring it back and be present. And so that was another thing is I took up mindfulness and meditation. Actually, I started to study Buddhism and meditation to actually embody that, to be present. And then like that was a game changer, um, all the way, all the way. And so as I started to become present, I was just like, this is where it is. We have this moment. And so I wanted to work with people to get them here, whatever this moment is, but forget about all this other stuff that's going on around them. Well, not forget, but you take it and you process it, you learn from it, but you're like, what's next? What's next? What's next? I'm here now.
Yeah.
What's next? What's my next step? What can I do? And to look and to look forward. And so if that means um, finally being aware that your let's say, like your high paying corporate job is not where it's at, but people are used to you being in that role. You're used to yourself being in that role, but you want to be a musician or you just want to go travel or something like that, then let's talk about it. Let's talk about getting back to that purpose and getting back to yourself. Whoever your genuine identity is still there.
Yeah.
It's just hidden under a whole bunch of stories and a whole bunch of gunk, energetic gunk that we have accumulated. And so we're going to get back to that pure self and that pure purpose.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So if you were to look at, like, that's an awesome story. If you were to look at your story, back at that time when you were sort of lost and disconnected and you had, you said you had no self-esteem and really low confidence and you
Oh
would
yeah.
talk to anybody, and did you have like a narrative inside your head? Like, did you have like that internal self-talk? Like, did you put yourself down a lot, or like, what was that sort of experience for you? Or was it more like a numbing experience?
It was actually both. So it was numbing, and it was actually me having that internal dialogue, like you would say. So um, always thinking, oh, nobody would want to talk to me, or I'm not interesting, or nobody would want to interact with me because of my weight. You know, all of these things, and so I would I would put myself in my own prison, so to speak.
Mm.
No one had to do that. No one had to put me in jail, so to speak. And I wasn't aware that I was doing that, you know, but through that negative self-talk and that numbing, that's all it took, so I would just not, I would just I see people being boisterous and all that, and I'm naturally an introvert, but it even went beyond that. It wasn't even that. It was just, you know, very negative, talking to myself negatively, just
Yes.
saying this shouldn't happen. And
Mm.
so when you talk to yourself like that, things start to happen, so if you're being negative, you're going to attract negativity. you know you're planting that negative seed. Of course, things are going to bloom that's negative.
Yeah. Yeah. I can identify with your story so much. I spent years as well growing up. Food was my emotional coping mechanism. A lot of emotional eating. It was sort of
Hmm.
the only way that I knew how to understand, that was modeled to me from my parents. So, and as a kid,
Hmm.
that's all you know. And
Hmm.
yeah, I spent years doing the same and numbing yourself, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's a lot to sort of be able to grow up and realize. Like, I know for myself, there was a point at which I had to separate my body image and my self image. Like,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
even though I was still overweight and maybe I didn't like what I saw in the mirror, like in my early 20s, I sort of went through this where even though I might not like what I saw in the mirror, that doesn't mean that I'm a bad person,
Hmm.
and it doesn't mean that I am
Right.
not worthy as a human being.
Hmm.
And that's a really big thing. Like, body image, I think for women especially, is massive. Like,
Hmm.
how often do you hear a man being like, oh, I shouldn't have another piece of cake, oh, that's going to go straight to my hips? Like, that doesn't happen,
Right. Right. Right.
like it doesn't. And even if a man's overweight, generally it's like, oh, it is what it is. But for women, we use it in such a different way. It's a shield, it's a way to numb, it's a way to hide.
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah.
Everything you said is exactly what was happening. And that started to happen, honestly, when it was around the time, it was around puberty time, I would say. So let's see, about 11, 12,
Yep.
preteens, and it just around that time, adolescence. And so I just started packing on the pounds. And there was just all the food that was there, that was in the home, was saturated, so it was like, like just really greasy foods or fried foods or things salted or sweet, anything and everything that was just like processed,
Yeah.
the juices, all of that stuff. And so I did try to lose weight multiple times. Like I would try Slim Fast. I would try to get I would get a can of Slim Fast and try to uh, I would try to lose weight with it, and I was a little successful with that, but I couldn't um, I didn't have I didn't have the support. You know what I mean? Like there was not an outlet. So like I would work out to programs on the TV and all of that, but like nothing that was I could keep myself accountable and sustainable, and then have that support around that. So it was super difficult for me to, even though I really wanted to lose weight, I could not. Like I couldn't do it at that time.
Yeah.
And so it was just super difficult. And then like one day I just decided it was time. Like it was just time. And then like I just decided to become very disciplined and like just shut it off and look at things that were playing into that as well. And that's when it all started to click. And then like I had no idea of there was like there was a term for it, like called emotional eating, but I realized that's what I was doing, like all that time when I was eating things at home. Sometimes I wouldn't even be hungry, you know what I mean? But something may have happened that triggered stress, or maybe I was angry or something like that, but I didn't let it out. It was, it wasn't a good idea. It wasn't good to let it out
Yeah.
at all. So I would just, take some snacks or something like that, and I would just eat. And it wasn't consciously; it was just unconsciously.
Yeah. Yeah. Food doesn't talk back. Food's a very safe place when you don't have any other means of coping with
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So to come sort of from this place of emotional eating and no self-esteem and no confidence to where you are today, and I mean, I don't know you well at all, but I'm sort of tempted to say you're a pretty damn confident woman. like so you mentioned before, really sort of getting into wellness and finding mindfulness and meditation. What other like tools or practices or steps did you take on your own personal journey that sort of helped you get to where you are today?
Yeah. So with with that, it was I mentioned the walking, like just getting out in nature. I didn't realize I was such a nature girl,
Mm,
because I didn't grow up in that environment. But when I went to college and I decided to just stay for a while, I fell in love with the environment because I was able to just walk around and be around the fresh air and just walk and not really worry about too much stuff. So in addition to that, I started to explore. Uh, I hate to say like new age, but like just um, things that would fall under the complementary or alternative healing modalities. So I got into like entrainment music with the frequencies,
mhm.
and because I remember like there was there was a series where they had like theta waves and beta waves and alpha waves and all of that. And, one would help you with your focus, one would help you to meditate deeply, one would help you to sleep, all of these other things. And so I was just like, okay, well, let me see. Never heard of them before, but I'll see. And then I put that on, and ever since then, I've been like a big fan of that. I've been a big fan of like frequencies and all of that, and I still use them to this day. Like to this day, I still it's not a thing for me to put on something that has frequency because I feel like it does resonate within your body, within your energy field and your mind, and it changes things.
Yeah.
And so that really helped me to really get focused, get calm, get relaxed. So that was another thing. Another thing, as I mentioned, was getting more into meditation, getting more into like this a spiritual practice that felt good for me, and just really taking just taking inventory of where where I where I was, what I'm doing, what would help me. Another thing was actually being conscious of food and actually choosing different foods, being choosy, um, looking at things on the box, and making sure that I took smaller portions and just becoming conscious about that and the energy source behind that. So I cut down on sugary sweets, I cut down on processed foods, and it made such a difference in my body. Like when I started to walk, I had more energy, and I was just like, oh my goodness, it was from the food and it's from the portions of the food. So that really was all of that was really a game changer. In addition to working on working on the mindset and bringing things in to remind me that you don't have, this is not the end of the story, or you don't have to be this way.
Yeah.
And so really working on that and just really getting into that and being here, like working on being present, like being here now, because I had a really awful thing of either focusing on the past, like things that you can't change, or worrying about the future. And I know I'm not unique in that, but it was like almost those two modes all the time because I hated being present. I really did. Like I couldn't stand it. I was just like, oh, I can't wait till I go here, there, or the other, or I can't wait. It was always some kind of daydreaming in the future or looking at the past to see where I messed up, but never present. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'm missing a lot of stuff by doing that because that's all mental. So what can I do in order to be here? Be here and anchor myself here and be in the body that I'm in now and love it and experience this. And so I started to do that work to be present because I realized that's really what matters is when you are present, like you're able to move. If you cannot stand your present, that's something is very wrong,
Yeah.
and it's got to be changed.
Yeah. 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 I love you've you've said so many good things in there, and I love listening to your language. Your language is that of a woman who has come a hell of a long way. Like you have used words like decided. You said one day I just decided, consciousness, presence. Like those are very that's empowering language. That's not I'm at
Mm-hmm.
the mercy of the world. That's not it's somebody else's fault that I feel this way. That
Mm-hmm.
that there's a lot of taking responsibility for your own experience in that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you noticed that because that's really where it stemmed from. For a long time, I will admit I felt like I was just going with the flow, but it wasn't even like an easy breezy kind of, whatever. It was just not being in charge, so to speak, and
Mhm.
you kind of lob on to whatever was there. And so if you live like that, you're not really living because you're not choosing, you know? And so I decided to start to choose because I noticed like I would just fall into things like, oh, okay, well, I like, you know, I like, let's say I like TV. I watch a lot of TV. Maybe I should major in radio and television. But then I started to major in that, and it just didn't fit. I was like, oh, that goes on, but I still like radio. I like to like edit radio and all of that things like behind the scenes, not really get on the microphone or anything like that. But then I was just like, okay, I kept just kind of doing those kind of things to see where I would land. And I was just like, oh my goodness, none of this is like None of this really feels good. And what started to feel good was helping people, like being of service to people. So when I started to work for nonprofits and just helping people, that's when I was just like, this is where I needed to be. And I haven't looked back like ever since. I really enjoyed working with people, and it's not just working with people; it's to help them um, become confident and gain whatever skills they need to gain in order to feel good and not only survive but really choose,
Yeah.
choose and empower themselves. So that is really that's really a critical mission for me to do, is to help people, help themselves, help them feel at home. And now, like with the coaching, it is having people to come on home to themselves, come on back, come on home, and be yourself. Who is that self? you know who is that person, and what do you want to explore? What is your purpose?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And that leads beautifully into, if, you know, if there was one exercise or practice that you would recommend for listeners, maybe there's somebody listening who is in that place of no self-esteem, no confidence, feeling really, crummy in their bodies, or feeling really, really, have that negative self-talk in their head. If there was one thing that you could recommend to a listener who's in that situation to help them take a step forward, what do you think you would recommend to them?
I would recommend, it all depends on the personality of the person, but whatever it is that would help them to tune in to their inner wisdom. For some people, it may be just reflecting and sitting still. For other people, it may be something spiritual like prayer or meditation. For some people, it might be something more physical, like going for a walk or run or working out or what have you. Or whatever it is to bring you into this moment, I would highly recommend to do that, because when you're in the moment, then it helps to clarify other things. It helps for you to tune in, like to tune into yourself, access that intuition that we all have, and just tune into that and listen. Listen to it, because one of the things I feel like is not appreciated, especially in Western culture, is intuition. Anything that has to do with it, like um, the intuitive side, that side, it's not valued as now. It might be on the rise now with everything that's going on, but that is that is our GPS. That is our inner GPS, to access our wisdom and to just connect.
Yeah.
And so whenever you have that and you trust your intuition, and then you have your mind, your reason, your reasoning to back that up, and it's all aligned, then the world's your oyster.
Yeah.
But it comes to like just listening to yourself, really listening and honoring it, not ignoring it, not listening, like you listen to it, but then all of a sudden there's a conflict, like, oh, well, I want to go paint, but I've been a CEO for 30 years. What is that going to look like to everybody?
Yeah.
If I just decide to chuck it all and then like just go paint, and be an artist, what is that? But you really have to really tap in and be like, okay, if I am not, if there's a dissatisfaction, if I am not happy in some kind of way, that's suffering. That really is suffering. You're suffering in some kind of way. It doesn't have to be a dramatic suffer, but you're suffering because you're not whole, you're not at peace, you know, or you're not listening. I shouldn't say you're not whole, but you're not at peace. There's a disturbance. So it's really critical to tap in and see what's causing that suffering. Why are you not happy? Why are you at you know uneasy? Why are you uneasy about things? What is causing you discomfort? No one should ever live that way.
Yeah.
No one should ever live that way. And so if it's something that is causing you your peace of mind and just peace, it's important to just tap in, listen to it, and honor it and explore it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's awesome. Yeah. That's a perfect place to start. Absolutely perfect. So we are getting near the end of our time. So if listeners want to get in touch with you, if they want to learn more about the work that you do, where is the best place for them to do so?
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, so the best place I have I have a coaching practice, and it's called Tranquil Roots Intentional Coaching, and that can be found on Facebook. And I'm also found on Instagram, so under the same name, so Tranquil Roots Intentional Coaching, and you'll see my little picture on both of those. And so I tend to engage in those two spaces. I also have a website. The website is called it is Tranquil Roots Intentional Coaching, but you can find it at tranquilrootsreiki.com. And so,
Beautiful.
yeah, so any of those, you're able to find me, and I love talking to people too. So I do have a Facebook group too, a free Facebook group. So if anyone is interested in that, it's right now the name is also it's Tranquil Roots Coaching Group. Right now is probably it will probably change, but you can find me there. My
Okay.
picture's probably hanging around somewhere.
Beautiful. And I'll make sure to put all the links to all those in the show notes. So if you are interested, you can just click on through and find them that way. We will make sure people can find you.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, Yolanda, it has been an absolute joy talking to you. Thank you again so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much. This was so fun, and I figured the 30 minutes would go so fast, or our time would go so fast. I don't know what time it is. I just know I enjoyed myself, and I just love it. And thank you so much for having me here. And it was a pleasure sharing.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If you want to get in touch with Yolanda, the links to all of her socials as well as her website can be found in the show notes down below. Also, you are invited to join us in the free Self-Love Simplified Facebook group. The link is also down there. Here is to loving yourself and accepting yourself just as you are. Have a beautiful day.